Don't you just hate it whenever people ag on about something that isn't remotely going to happen? Like, for example, Bloodborne 2. Now, we've had this happen quite a numerous of times, especially since we had that Shingekiro Shadows Die Twice game. People thought it was very Bloodborne-like, and it kinda did. Initially, whenever they showed that first trailer, it kinda looked like Bloodborne. But then you had the actual trailer for Shingekiro, and it showed that it was going to be this new IP entirely, which I'm always for. I'm always for seeing new IPs being made. I'm always used to seeing it, because here's the thing. From Software has been known for making other games. It's not just a Souls-like game experience. They have made other types of games in the past. They made a hack-and-slash gameplay style, like a freaking Ninja Gaiden, I think. I forgot what the name of that game was. But yeah, they've done that. They've done other games for, like, PlayStation 1 in the past. So this wouldn't be the first time they've made a new IP in genuine. They've just been mostly known for the Souls series, the Soulsborne series. So, I mean, yes, for the record, would I like to see another Bloodborne being made? Yes, I would. I'm not going to deny on that one. But, here's the thing. We can all agree that if they were going to make a new Bloodborne game, they would have already started it by now. But then again, who's to say, really? But, there's another stir in that discussion, and it's thanks to VaatVidya. I hope I pronounced that right. I swear, I mispronounce that every single time. But it's VaatVidya. He's been mostly known for talking about the Soulsborne series in terms of a deeper discussion. Sort of like Silvermont, except this guy has gotten a lot farther in. He is literally at 1 million subscribers, which is very impressive. I think Silvermont is barely past that, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's barely past 500,000. I'm going to look real quickly. This will take me just a sec. I do apologize, but I believe Silvermont is getting close to that 500,000 mark. If he's got more than that, then I'm probably feeling bad right now. Where are you at? Dadgummit, I know you release a video sometime. Here it is. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look here. How many subscribers have you got? Oh, he hasn't even got 100,000 yet. Okay, never mind. Silvermont, check him out. He's actually really cool. I like him. Both him as well as VaatVidya do really good in terms of representing the Souls series, as well as the Souls community. They're both really good. But, VaatVidya did a video, and basically the title is Whisperings of Bloodborne 2. Now, obviously, the title itself alone is kind of clickbaity, but to a degree, it kind of makes sense considering what all it entails. Basically, there's been a new game that From Software has started working on, and it's just got released. It's for the PlayStation VR, and it's called Denseri? I have no idea how it's pronounced. It's Deracine. For the PlayStation VR. So if you have a PlayStation VR, check this out. They do a really good job when it comes to gameplay, and they do a really good job when it comes to in-depth storytelling through items and stuff like that. And really, this game shows it. This game really does redefine their art, you know. Because, I mean, if you play Dark Souls and Bloodborne, you know the story isn't within the main game. The story is within the item description themselves. The item description tells the story of the world itself. It gives the lore. And this game is no this is no exception. You know, you're going through this house, you're exploring these different items and stuff like that, and each item tells a story about what's going on in this house and everything like that. It tells about the family and everything. So, this is actually really interesting. But there was like a couple of items that was discovered, and he kind of linked them up into thinking, you know, I think they're talking about Bloodborne 2. I think they're talking about Bloodborne 2. So, I will admit that I have no doubt in my mind that From Software is considering doing a Bloodborne 2. They're not really working on it, but they are like within the thinking realms of like, we might actually do a Bloodborne 2. We didn't say we were done with the series. We just said that we want to break from it for the time being right now. Obviously, because of all these other titles they're wanting to work on, obviously with this PlayStation VR game that they got released, and then we got Shingeki coming out later on next year. Obviously, they have games they want to actually currently work on that they are ambitious enough to want to work on, which I encourage fully. But when you've got a really great selling title such as Bloodborne, they're going to make a sequel. They're more than likely going to make a sequel. I guarantee you. Sony is really agging them, saying, are you working on a Bloodborne 2 by chance? Are you? And From Software's like, no, currently, right now, we are not interested in making Bloodborne 2. And I was like, are you sure? Because we already posted something saying that you might reveal Bloodborne 2. No, we are not revealing Bloodborne 2. Okay. But Bloodborne sold really well back when you made it, and it sold the system really well, so we would like to see a Bloodborne 2, particularly by the PlayStation 5's release date. We will do what we can, but for right now, we are not working on a Bloodborne 2. Okay. Are you at least thinking about it? Yes, we are thinking about it, Sony, so please leave my bathroom now. Oh, okay. Like, seriously, that's literally the situation. Sony is literally agging at From Software, basically saying, hey, Bloodborne sold really well, work on Bloodborne 2. And the development team is like, no, we want to work on other projects, but when we get to a point where there's no other projects we want to work on, then we will see about working on Bloodborne 2. This is obviously makes sense, you know. A development team should have the freedom to decide what games they want to develop, because at that point in time, if they are fully invested in making that game, you have a better gameplay experience. And Bloodborne and Dark Souls both have to be very invested games. Very invested. You're going to create a new lore for the universe. You're creating a new style of gameplay. You're creating a story hidden within the story. From Software wants to concentrate all their focus into making a game, and really it shows. It shows their talent, it shows their storytelling. In all honesty, I want them to take their time. I don't want them just to rush out a game. I want them to take their time and make an unbelievable experience. Record in Bloodborne case, a more mind-fucked experience, but in terms of the overall scale, I want them to make a really unique game entirely. I want them to take their time with it. So even if Bloodborne 2 doesn't come out before the PlayStation 5's ultimate release date, which probably won't be from like 3 years from now, I'm okay with that, you know. Take your time, you know, don't rush with it. But VaatVidya basically suggested that they are literally thinking about Bloodborne 2, and these Easter eggs shows it. I would honestly say that maybe it's not so much as a reference to saying that they are working on a game. I wouldn't doubt it, because some companies do that, but I wouldn't say that that was literally what they're doing. He's basically pulled up like 3 different ideals that kind of shows that it could be Bloodborne, and each of these items talk about this dream world, which if you're familiar with Bloodborne, you would know that technically this dream world would be the hunter's dream. The theme of Bloodborne, other than being a Fatoria theme, it is actually that of dreams, or the nightmare in this case, the nightmare realm. And basically, this dream world that these items talk about is a reference to Bloodborne in some degree. However, though, the first item that he talks about in question is the Fiona doll. Now, this one in particular is obviously a reference to the doll within Bloodborne. And understandably so. She does actually have what looks like a detail of the doll, but it's hard to say if it's an actual connection in regards to the doll. She does actually have like a hand gesture of like one of the gestures that you can get within Bloodborne, being that of the make contact. So it kind of makes sense. I understand where he gets on that one. That's an obvious Easter egg for Bloodborne. But I wouldn't say that's a Bloodborne 2 reference. Because in all honesty, if they are going to do a Bloodborne 2 reference, they wouldn't use previous stuff to showcase it. Now, I'm thinking that if they do a Bloodborne 2, they will obviously not include the doll this time around, But if they do, it would be interesting to see make a comeback. If nothing else, a redesign of the doll. That would be interesting, a redesign of the doll. But with that being said, however, that'd be pretty cool to see. Now, there was another item that was discovered, and basically it is the Seafaring Sage. And basically, obviously this also talks about the dream world as well. It is said to appear in bad dreams. And obviously, I think this particular Seafaring Sage item is a reference to Bergamworth. It's also in Bloodborne as well, so naturally the theme especially towards the DLC, Bergamworth has been referenced a lot. In fact, it's actually the main area in which where this whole debacle experience actually started to begin with, when they were experiencing this ancient blood, and they're injecting it into people, but this ancient blood is affecting people, turning them into monsters, turning them into alien-like creatures and stuff like that. So naturally, this is actually a pretty interesting link and connection, and the only way you would know about this about the Seafaring Sage being connected to Bloodborne is if you knew about Bergamworth, and especially within the DLC of the Old Hunters, towards the end of that you do encounter more fish-like enemies or fish-like humanoid creatures per se. So this particular item does make sense for a Bloodborne reference. Again, if they are going to do a Bloodborne 2, I don't think they're going to go about the same direction as Bloodborne. Instead, they're going to go more towards the darker side of H.P. Lovecraft's material. Now, I haven't really done a massive research in regards to H.P. Lovecraft, but I have looked enough to see if there was potential to do a Bloodborne 2. And there is potential for a Bloodborne 2. So much so, in fact, that I'm afraid of how the next one's gonna look, because keep in mind, my first experience for Bloodborne was pretty terrifying to some degree. At record, I enjoy it more and more every single time I play it, but I would not deny that it definitely had an eerie, creepy vibe on my end, to a point to where my hair was literally standing up on my head. That's how terrifying it can get sometimes. So, but in all honesty, I think, again, if they're going to do a Bloodborne 2, it would be towards the darker side realms of H.P. Lovecraft, because seriously, you should look it up. It's going to be demented, and it's going to bring you nightmares, but there is materials for a Bloodborne 2. You should definitely look into that area. It's a little bit dark, I admit, but it's pretty interesting regardless. But there's a third item that he brings up, and in question, I don't think this is enough to tell that if it is going to be a Bloodborne reference, because really, in all honesty, when you look at the items in question, honestly, I think he kinda overstretched his boundaries. I think it's not really a Bloodborne reference, much less a Bloodborne 2 reference. Now, record, when he states what it could be, I thought to myself, I was like, that sounds like it would be interesting, but at the same time, that sounds like it would be kind of risky to do. But from what this third reference is, it is basically a book entitled Blood and Bones. Now, I will not argue about the blood part. The blood part in question could be that of Bloodborne. Obviously, that's the reason why it's called Bloodborne. You know, people inject ancient blood into their streams. It turns them into grotesque creatures and stuff like that. This makes sense. I'm not going to argue that. I will, however, argue about the bones part. In fact, when you look at the cover of that particular book that is picked up, I don't see Bloodborne. I see Sengekiro Shadows Die Twice. He has this like ancient giant robe, it looks like. Now, it could be Aztec, I'm not sure. I didn't really invest in Aztec lore to see how it would look, but to see an Aztec form of Bloodborne, I don't think that would work, because Bloodborne is known for Victoria style backgrounding. So to see a Victoria style Aztec theme of Bloodborne would be kind of weird. I mean, it's not far stretched, admittedly, But at the same time, I don't see it being the case. Instead, I think this is more of a reference towards their upcoming title, Sengekuro Shadows Die Twice. I think that's what it literally is. I don't think it's anything major, and I don't think it's anything uniquely invested in. And really, in all honesty, there's really nothing else that proves that it is that. It just, again, I just think he was just stretching a little bit far for there to be a possible third clue for Bloodborne 2. Now, with all that being said, again, like I said, yes, I would love to see another Bloodborne 2, but really, I don't see it being the same style or even remotely the same as we're used to. I think we're going to see either a more futuristic style, or we're going to see a little bit of the past of Yharnam. It's going to be one of the two, or it could be just like how it did in Dark Souls 2, where it's going to take place in a different place entirely. You know, Yharnam is mostly encampments of the blood, but who's to say how far that reach? Who's to say, you know? Yharnam may be the main spot of Bloodborne, but who's to say how far it actually reached out into other areas of the world, you know? That would be interesting to see. Or they could go either a fast forward into the future or a rewind into the past of Yharnam. That would be interesting to see, personally, myself. And that would probably be where they would go invest in the darker realms of H.P. Lovecraft's work. That would be something interesting to see, personally, myself. Personally, I think the story, if we're going to invest to see how the story is going to progress, we have to look back in terms of Bloodborne's ending. Now, there are 3 separate endings, technically. There's the ending in which you choose to submit your life in order to be free from the dream. You can choose to kill Gammon and become the next damn it, I forgot what it's called. The next host of the dream, rather. The host of the nightmare. The host of the moon presence nightmare. Basically being the surrogated child, basically. He can choose to be the next one. And there's the true ending. What this quote, true ending to Bloodborne, according to what people say, according to what From Software says. This is where you kill the moon phase, in which case you become the next nightmare creature, the next great one, particularly. So, if we're going to be playing on the fact that it's going to happen after this particular ending, then chances are we're going to be fighting the hunter as the next great one. So, obviously, either you're going to be helping it grow, or you're going to be fighting it in order to stop it from spreading nightmare and corruption through the world, or who knows what. Chances are it's going to be playing off of that ending, and if it is, it's going to be an interesting one to see. Because technically, from Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, they've been more or less looking towards the real ending when you kindle the flame and everything, where the cycle continues in a never-ending cycle to a point to where the world turns into ash. So, really, in all honesty, I think it's playing based on that true ending in Bloodborne. And what is happening to my voice? Daggum. There we go, much better. I swear, I thought my voice was about to lose. Oh, gosh almighty. But anyway, though, again, that's just what I thought about it for a Bloodborne 2. I don't think we're going to see it until, like, sometime after 2020. If we do actually hear anything in particular. Again, I would like to see a Bloodborne 2. I'm not going to deny that. But I want the team to be invested in the project. I don't want them just to push it just for the namesake. We've had too many of these things happen already as it is. I'd want to see Bloodborne 2 try to surpass Bloodborne in terms of what it's done previously. So, who's to say if they'll ever do it? But let me know in the comments below, what did you think about VaatVidya's video in regards to whispering of Bloodborne 2? Is he right on the mark? Is there a possibility? How much do you really want to see a Bloodborne 2? I'm actually interested to hear that. So, anyway though guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.